So the rumors once again between the Cleveland Browns and Kirk Cousins heats up with speculation of the Falcons potentially releasing or trading Kirk Cousins, as well as a few days ago Cousins being in northern Ohio and people, of course, seeing pictures of him at restaurants. Now, leading again, fueling the speculation of the two parties maybe potentially joining together sometime this offseason. And I kind of want to get my thoughts on the situation, especially if, let's say, for the what if Kirk Cousins does join the Cleveland Browns, my thoughts on it. And for me, what you're seeing on screen here, I tweeted out earlier, it makes no sense to me. It does. And not for just what's on screen here for the money and the age and concern with that. For the money, they'll figure it out. I mean, when I looked on SpotTrack, they have currently just under 18 million. They have 17.7 million cap space. I'm sure they'll they'll move the numbers around and make that work. So I have no worry about that. Even if you look at long-term option-wise, if you look at his contract, it's essentially going to be a one-year deal. I can't imagine this being farther than that, at least on this current contract, because when you look at 26 and 27, he's making 57.5, and I doubt his play is going to warrant that, especially coming off of what he did in 2024. So you see the potential out in 2026 again. So a one-year, $40 million deal. The way the market's going for quarterbacks, especially for competent quarterbacks, it's relatively cheap. It's going the kind of going rate for it. Maybe he does come back after this one season if he does go there, but it's going to have to be in a restructured deal or a new deal entirely, I should say. To me, the more likely option is they take the potential out and he comes back on a much, much cheaper deal than this. I think even less than, far less than 40 million at that point. But, aside from the money, I do have concerns of his playing ability as well. He's 37 years old right now and doesn't have much left, I don't think. Again, looking at his playing ability and what he did, he was up there for interceptions with 16. And down the stretch, he played bad, which led to him eventually being benched by Michael Penix, the rookie. And with them being, of course, set on Penix being the starter, moving forward with that, it seems likely with the money he's making that it seems dumb to have a backup quarterback making $40 million. It is. So it's going to, for the rumors, potentially lead to, what they said, a release or a trade, whatever comes first. But even aside from this, I don't like this option because even if Kirk Cousins goes there, yes, he is a far much better upgrade than what they have right now. We'll go to the room, what they have for the Cleveland Browns. It's a lot better. They have Deshaun Watson and Kenny Pickett. Deshaun Watson, even when he's healthy, is not that good. He's only played 18 games in 3 years for the Cleveland Browns, or you can count 4 with him missing this entire season. Remember, $250 million fully guaranteed. Remember that. So even when the healthy Deshaun Watson is available, he's not as good as Kirk Cousins. I'm sorry. He's been subpar. That's being nicely to put it. He's been absolutely horrible, as well as Kenny Pickett. And I'm sure no one wants that to happen for Kenny Pickett being the starter. It's tough to sell to Browns fans. That is not a good sign for it. So I get that these two are, compared to these two, it's a far better upgrade at that position for this year. But it's pushing the issue down the road once again. And what the issue is for Stefanski and this regime is not have been able to do is find the next quarterback. And they had that with Baker Mayfield. And his final year there, he played bad, but he had a shoulder injury after trying to make a tackle and interception. And it spread out quickly after that. And you see what Baker Mayfield's doing now in Tampa Bay. He's kind of really revived his career and has been, dare I say, a top 10 quarterback. If you want to say lower on the top 10 list, but he's played well, if you want to say that, or if not, a fringe top 10 quarterback. He's been far better than what the Cleveland Browns have had since then. Going to Deshaun Watson, remember, $250 million fully guaranteed. So I look at that, and it's, again, it's pushing the issue down the road. And what happens after 2025 and you have 2026? To me, the obvious option is, of course, Deshaun Watson, but we've seen what he's done before. You can't guarantee this guy's going to stay healthy for the full year. You're guaranteed at least 6 games. Again, if you average out what he's done perfectly, it's 6 games a year, actually. And even when he does play, it's been okay. Being very generous, it's been okay. That's what it's been. Kirk Cousins is not pushing the needle for you any further. And again, it's pushing the issue down the road of the quarterback position. And I get this quarterback class is not that great if you're not a big fan of Shedeur Sanders, because Cam Ward is going to be the first overall pick. So again, if you're not a fan of Shedeur Sanders, I get it. And you hear there's speculation of them going to Abdul Carter. Seems like he's a lock for second overall. Or if you want to throw in Travis Hunter, who to me is the best player in this draft class. And if you also follow Pro Football Focus, they do rank him as the best player in this year's draft class. I have no issue with that, one or two. And I would certainly pick one of those two over Shedeur, because they are far much better prospects, and I think they'll be better players than Sanders. That's not to say Sanders can't be a great quarterback, but to me, I think I just more on I'm for Sanders and for Carter and Hunter. I just view them much more like higher than that. To me, like I had Hunter as a generational player, potential generational player, and Abdul Carter to me can be one of the best pass rushers in the league. So it just, it's not necessarily a knock on Sanders. It's just more of a higher praise on those two. So even if you go with that, which is perfectly fine, do you go later in the draft to get a quarterback? Again, I doubt that. I don't think there's really anyone else. Maybe you hope to get maybe Jalen Milroe in the second round if he falls that far. That could be an option. But again, is that, with him his concerns, especially with his accuracy and his throwing, having the accuracy issues and kind of a little bit worrisome of him throwing the football. Is he going to be a polished quarterback? Will he ever be? How long does he wait to develop? To me that is kind of a little bit of a risky pick in my opinion. Not to say again that he can't succeed, but that's going to be a little bit tough to sell at this point. So you're looking at likely 2026. And I know I just said I'm sure Browns fans aren't too happy with going with Kenny Pickett. But maybe you do that, so you get a higher pick once again in 2026, and then you finally get your guy. Because I'm worried that if Kirk Cousins plays well, you're going to be in the middle of the draft, and I don't know how it's going to shake up with the quarterbacks and how everything's going to pan out by the time we get to the 2026 draft. Who's going to be available? Are they going to have the opportunity to trade up if they have to? Is there going to be quarterbacks available where they're picking? So I look at that already, and that's hurting your future. And I get for Stefanski and them, they have to win now because they are coming off a horrible season, which is why they're picking second overall. But it just, again, why I keep saying over, it's just pushing the issue down the road. Because let's say you have a decent season, 8-9, 9-8, maybe you have a 10-win season. What else after that? Because then you can't bring back Kirk Cousins because you have Deshaun Watson. And what happens if Deshaun Watson flunks again? And you're back to the same dilemma all over again. So to me, it's redundant. I don't get it. And for me, Kirk Cousins doesn't really push a needle at all. You look at the rest of the roster, it's a lot left to be desired, in my opinion. You look at the running back group, they're all solid, but there's nothing spectacular about it. Jerome Ford, Pierre Strong Jr., they give you flashes, especially, Jerome Ford is your best running back right now. But you can do a lot better. Certainly a lot better, and I won't be surprised if they go in the draft and draft a running back early on. For wide receiver, outside of Jerry Jeudy, there's not really anybody there. And I do worry that Jerry Jeudy's not going to be able to replicate what he did last year. It was a career year, no doubt about that. Made the Pro Bowl, over 1,100 yards receiving at least, maybe 1,200 he had. Are we really putting a lot of stock and hope in that he's going to be able to replicate what he did and be a number one wide receiver? I don't know. He hasn't really shown that in his career outside of this past season. You could say, for Broncos at least, it's not relatively all his fault because of the quarterback situation there as well. And the organization before, of course, everyone came into place with Sean Payton and new ownership and so forth. So I look at that, and again, it's you're putting a lot of stock in Jerry Jeudy, replicating what he did, or at least being close to what he did last year. So you have potentially one receiver. If not, you have really nobody. For tight ends, you do have David Njoku, who's been a solid tight end, no doubt about that. I don't think anything amazing, but has shown flashes, has made plays when he had to. So you have a solid tight end, and David Njoku could be one of the better ones at times in the league. So at the very least, you have David Njoku and hopefully Jerry Jeudy next year, and you have a decent offensive line at best. That to me is not really going to shake up too well in terms of really competing. Again, Kirk Cousins, far better upgrade than the other two, doesn't really push the needle, especially in the division when you have these Cincinnati Bengals that you're going to have to go in a shootout for because of having Jamar Chase, T. Higgins locked up for long term, as well as Joe Burrow being there. Defense, as long as they can get, hopefully for their sake, they can just draft a couple decent players, or hopefully ones that pan out. And if they just have a somewhat decent defense, they're going to be contending for the AFC or going to the Super Bowl, going through the AFC. So you have that. You have the Baltimore Ravens, who are up there as well, have contention to go to the Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and that offense, defense is certainly has been solid. So you look at those two, already tough enough. These Steelers are always good for 10 wins, making the playoffs. We're not sure what the quarterback situation is going to be there because they have Mason Rudolph. We'll see if whenever Aaron Rodgers decides to make a decision, if he goes there, that he makes it even tougher what they have. They just brought in DK Metcalf. They have a good defense as well. So you look at that, and that's already 3 teams in a division that are much better than what you have right now, even with Kirk Cousins being on the roster. So you look at that, you're not going to be close to winning the division, and you're not going to be, and with that, you're probably not going to be close to making the playoffs. So I just think it's kind of redundant for Kirk Cousins to go there. Again, I get it because it's a serviceable quarterback. He does have recognition. It does, it's a good name to have. It's nothing, not a horrible player like Kenny Pickett by that standard. But to me, I just don't see that. It's just pushing inevitable. You're not going to have a good season. And for me, if you're just going to waste the money, if you're going to bring in a veteran quarterback, don't waste the money. I mean, look at the free agents right now, cross off Aaron Rodgers because he's not going to Cleveland. You have Joe Flacco. If you wanted to spend that money, and you look at it from the market value, it's far less, $3.1 million. And he did get you to the playoffs a couple of years ago when he had to in those final few games. Didn't really do anything too much in that playoff game against Houston. But again, if you're just looking for a serviceable quarterback and just barely getting by this year, and not, again, I mean, if you're not going to be contending for the playoffs. So would you rather spend a few $1 million or $40 million? I'm sure they'll figure it out, for the $40 million, but it's just, to me, it's the same result, really. Maybe Kirk Cousins plays, you would hope, better than Joe Flacco or anyone else on this list, but you don't know. I mean, he didn't have a good season this past year, so who knows what's going to happen with that. And he's going to a team that has less talent offensively, as well as, if you want to throw Teddy Bridgewater in there, coming back out of retirement after coaching high school, is that something you want to take a chance on? Again, these are probably horrible options of what I'm recommending, but to me, it all leads to the same result of not making the playoffs, not being competitive. Sure, you're going to have a great player, and again, Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, who you draft second overall, and a promising player on defense. But to me, Kirk Cousins just doesn't do it. It's prolonging the inevitable. They're going to have to, at some point, if this regime is still here for a few more years, they're going to have to find a next quarterback. And I'm not advocating for them to draft Shedeur Sanders, but I look at this as maybe a little bit of a selfish standpoint, not being a Browns fan, but just setting yourself up for 2026, because I think we need to really face the reality of this team, this regime being delusional. They can't compete. They're not going to be a playoff caliber team. They're certainly as hell not a Super Bowl caliber team. So you look at that and it's like, what are we doing? Get your quarterback in 2026, whether it's Archie Manning or whoever's going to be available at that point, or wherever you're going to be, and then you build forward from there. Outside of that, to me, this is just hurting your draft stock, hurting yourself. It's not really pushing the needle. It's kind of like a sideways move here. It's a lateral move. I don't really see too much of it. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the point of it. Maybe I'm just being an idiot, over analyzing this or not analyzing it enough. To me, again, it just seems dumb to make this move for the Browns. Like, get they need a quarterback, but I don't really see too much of, with the move being that much better for this team. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in for the rest of the offseason going to 2025. If they some point get a deal done via trade or signing a free agency, or maybe they draft a quarterback potentially in the draft, maybe in the second, third round. We'll see what happens.